Let's take a bold...
Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, Defence Ministers of India and Kenya meet in New Delhi. MOU signed for collaboration in ship design and construction. Indian Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari launches the world's first 100% ethanol-run vehicle. London's clean air ultra-low emission zone expanded to the whole of the British capital, but it causes unease among Londoners. Hurricane Idalia to make landfall on Wednesday in the U.S. state of Florida. Governor orders massive evacuation.
There are evacuation orders for coastal low-lying areas in 22 different counties along the Gulf Coast, as well as throughout North Florida.
India's space agency ISRO shares the latest data from its moon mission. The rover confirms the presence of sulfur and oxygen on the lunar South Pole. And India celebrates National Sports Day. Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur launches several initiatives to boost sports infrastructure. The Defence Ministers of India and Kenya hold talks on enhancing capacity building and cooperation in New Delhi. DD India's Tripti Tripathi has the details.
India and Kenya are forging a strategic partnership aiming to deepen collaboration in defence, trade, their economies and education. The defence ministers of both nations held talks in India's capital on Tuesday, exploring avenues to strengthen defence ties. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh underscored India's priority of engaging with African countries and highlighted the significance of strengthening ties with Kenya.
We will find a lot of common ground to work together to take our partnership forward. Excellency, India has prioritized engagement with African nations. Our Prime Minister has written to all G20 member countries to include African Union in G20 membership in the upcoming Leaders Summit under India's presidency. Specifically, in the field of defense, initiatives like the India-Africa Defense Dialogue, India-Africa Army Chiefs Conclave, and India-Africa Field Training Exercises, Appendix, show our resolve to deepen ties with Africa.
The two sides signed an agreement involving Goa Shipyard Limited and Kenya Shipyard Limited on ship design and construction. Both sides also agreed on joint training in counter-insurgency and on UN peacekeeping missions. India and Kenya have maritime trade history. Both nations have increased investment, trade and connection between people in recent decades.
We want to acknowledge the support the Indian government continues to extend to Kenya and to thank you, Minister, through many fields. At the defense level, we have cooperated in the surveillance of the Indian Ocean maritime space. And I am sure this visit will extend more our bilateral relations between our two countries, but more so between our defense sector.
This is the first and highest level standalone political visit from Kenya to India since the new government assumed office in September last year. With Vishal Baristo, Tripti Tripathi for DD India.
India's Transport Minister has launched the world's first prototype of an ethanol-powered car, which will be developed by Toyota Motors in a bid to promote the use of clean energy in the country. Right, so that's an innovative initiative by the Indian Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, launching the world's first 100% ethanol-powered vehicle. And as the report mentioned, this will be developed going forward by Toyota Motors of Japan. Now, ethanol is produced from plant waste, especially sugarcane, corn, maize, and one good advantage of having ethanol as a fuel for vehicles in particular is it is green, it is climate friendly, environment friendly, and it's a better alternative than most other fossil fuels.
India has made major waves in the automobile industry. It has launched the world's first prototype of an ethanol-powered car that will be developed by Toyota Motors to promote the use of clean energy in the country. The technology provides the capabilities for the vehicle to be run fully on ethanol.
आज टोयोटा ने ये जो गाड़ी लाई है ये 100% तक जा सकती है फ्लेक्स इंजन में। इनके पहले मैं बजाज, टीवीएस और हीरो के पीछे लगा, मोटरसाइकिल तैयार की, ऑटो रिक्शा तैयार की। पूना में आपने इंडियन ऑयल ने 3 पंप शुरू किए, प्रधानमंत्री ने उसका इनॉग्रेशन किया। एथेनॉल की इकोनॉमी जिस दिन 2 लाख करोड़ की बनेगी उस दिन एग्रीकल्चर ग्रोथ रेट जो 12% है वो 20% तक पहुंचेगा।
India has set a target of achieving ethanol blending in petrol to 20% by 2025-2026. This will give farmers a higher price for the sugarcane used in the process for production of ethanol.
All these efforts that are being made today, I think, contribute to that, including advancing the technology and the science to make urban transport much more efficient. And I must say with humility, we have a long journey to go ahead, but these are small but significant steps being taken.
Use of biofuels will give a boost to the ethanol economy by over 8%. These steps will also help the nation in its fight against climate change. With Abhishek Singh, Tripti Tripathi, DD India.
And joining me is Mr. R.K. Dhawan, an automobile expert. Mr. Dhawan, welcome to DD India. First off the bat, Mr. Dhawan, why ethanol? What are its benefits?
The most important benefit is the environment. You know, our environment will be saved phenomenally, and obviously the inflow of fossil fuel will become less. And here, this fuel is going to be produced 100% in-house in our own country by waste products from the agriculture. And as you said earlier, you know, it would be from a lot of waste. You know, even parali and bamboo also produces ethanol. So at the end of the day, this is going to be beneficial for the industry, for the environment, and also for the consumer. Because the petrol and ethanol difference is anything between 60 to 70% in cost. Now, how much of the benefit is going to be passed on to the consumer is a big guess. You know, it depends on what the government decides about it.
Mr. Dhawan, I'm told that I'll be joined momentarily by Mr. Shudhendu Jyoti Sinha. But in the meantime, I want to ask you another question, Mr. Dhawan. Now, I'm told that 20% blended ethanol is already available in India. So my question to you is this: when can one expect a higher grade of ethanol to become available in the rest of the country, throughout India?
Well, I believe the higher grade of ethanol is going to be available in the next 2 to 3 years. Because obviously, I mean, this is a prototype which has come up now, and it is going to take some while, you know, for the production to happen and the refineries to go into full steam. So all these things obviously is going to be the initiative of the government and the industry and the automotive industry, who is going to be making flex fuel engines, which is very important because these fuels can only be used on flex fuel engines. And obviously you have got to upgrade the technology a bit to be able to burn this fuel efficiently.
Right. I'm told Mr. Shudhendu Jyoti Sinha is with me and joins me in the studio. Mr. Sinha is Advisor Infrastructure Connectivity at NITI Aayog. Now, NITI is the abbreviation for National Institution for Transforming India, and Ayog is Hindi for Commission, and Niti Ayog is India's apex public policy think tank headquartered in New Delhi. Mr. Sinha, welcome to DD India. Now, I want to ask the same question I asked Mr. Dhawan. Why ethanol?
Because ethanol is a biofuel. It is a clean fuel.
Right.
It is indigenously available.
Okay.
And it has got multiple. It in one go it solves many of the problems. So it adds on to the income level of the farmers on one side. It is going to go for import substitution of fossil fuels. So it's a one-stop solution to many of the issues. So that's the reason why it is. In fact, ethanol is known as alternate fuel. So if somebody asks which is alternate fuel, it is ethanol.
Right.
That is precisely what the impact is, what the purpose is. Yes.
So now I'm told that at the moment in India, 20% blended ethanol is available. When can we expect a higher grade of ethanol blend to become available throughout the country?
So I should put it this way, as of now, almost 11-12% is something that is going on. In fact, the target last year was achieved 5 months before it was slotted to me. So that's an amazing feat of the entire Team India, I would say. And for the 2030, it was slotted to be 20%. Now again, it has been preponed by our Honorable Prime Minister, and this is going to be achieved by 2025. That is what the target is. So as of now, the 20% is something that is going to be a norm of the day. But then how to go further, that would definitely require, additional technology interventions. And the one that you are mentioning today, maybe it is a prototype, so that could be a precursor to the new technology getting into, and that innovation will lead to higher blending. Yes.
Indeed. Mr. Dhawan, as Mr. Sinha says this, we are talking about a prototype as of now. But I'm wondering, and I'm sure many of our viewers are wondering too as we speak, can any vehicle be converted to ethanol? I ask you this because hybrid cars are in vogue today, petrol and electric or petrol and CNG.
Well, as you know, we already have ethanol, 20% ethanol blended fuel already being dispensed. But when you are talking of a bigger number, a bigger volume of ethanol, that has obviously to be used in only those hybrid engines. This is a special engine which has to be made only for this. For ethanol-based fuel, you will have to have a flex engine which will have to be developed by companies and sold separately. This is not going to be like a petrol vehicle. You can add ethanol blend into it and it will run like that. No, it won't.
Right. Mr. Sinha, you seem to paint a picture of ethanol being a veritable silver bullet. Now, one of the benefits of ethanol, I'm told, is that it's because it's made from plant waste, sugarcane, corn, maize, and barley. There is no need to burn stubble, and that will greatly reduce air pollution, isn't it?
Yes, I fully agree. You see, in fact, that has been one of the premier problems of, especially in this part of North India, and Delhi has quite at times been affected because of that. So it will be a major solution to that. So maybe as we move on, this ethanol kind of processing, and as the technology improves, which it will, so this would be kind of thing. So you were mentioning flex fuel technology enables you to go beyond 20%. Otherwise, if you go without that technology in normal engine, then you will be compromising on the quality and the life of the engine.
I see.
So once you induct that particular technology into it, and that is what precisely this Toyota Kirloskar Motors have done. Once you are able to induct that technology, then that empowers you to go beyond 20%. That is what the advantage is. Yes.
Indeed. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Sinha, but India spends nearly $200 billion per year on importing fossil fuel from overseas. Now, can progressive use of ethanol bring that cost down and help the economy as well?
Definitely. So that is one advantage.
So how much money or quantum of money saved are we talking about?
So
sir?
let's put it this way. Suppose, let's say 100 rupees is the cost. Now, if you are in a position to blend it by 20%, and that 20% is cheaper by, let's say 60%, it is around 60% of the main cost, it will bring down the cost. So you rightly said that 16 lakh crore rupees, that is what the Indian rupee terms it is. That is the amount of input which is going on, and that needs to be substituted. Ethanol is one of the technologies. There are a bouquet of technologies on which they are working. Electrification is one, strong hybrid is another one, a set of technologies that will in turn lead to this, it will substitute the huge amount that is flowing outside.
Mr. Dhawan, is ethanol as a fuel for automobiles cheaper than, say, petrol or diesel? I ask you this because India aims, as Sinha said, 20% ethanol blend by 2025.
No, there's one little negative in this, that the efficiency of ethanol is not as much as fossil fuel. So when you are talking of power on the vehicle, it comes down a bit, and obviously the consumption of the fuel also goes up by anything between 15 to 20%. So that is the negative part in it. But obviously when you are talking of cheaper fuel by 60 to 70%, I don't think any consumer would have any objection in getting a little less and paying lesser also.
All right, Mr. Dhawan, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. Mr. Sinha, you get the last word. Your thoughts on the efficacy and the efficiency of ethanol as an automobile fuel going forward?
So this is a proven thing, you see. It has to go forward, and this is one of the national aims that we have decided to put. And as I said, this is not the only one. There are a set of others also. So together with that entire bouquet of interventions, technological interventions, I am 100% sure that our mobility is going to be clean, green, it is going to be charged, connected, and it has to be common and convenient. And the net impact would be that it is going to decarbonize this particular sector, and then the flow of funds, as I said, the flow of precious foreign exchange for purchasing these things, that would be taken care of. So this is what the position is.
Mr. Sinha, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you. And still to come on DD India News Hour. London Mayor promises a cleaner and greener city by imposing a levy on vehicles, but motorists are not happy. And Pakistan court orders Imran Khan's release in a corruption case.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
You're watching DD India. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. Now, 4th March 2024, that's the day Donald Trump's federal trial on allegations that he tried to overturn the 2020 presidential election is slated to begin. That means a former president and current Republican 2024 frontrunner will be juggling a schedule full of court cases and campaigning. Nick Harper joins me from Washington, D.C. for more on this developing story. Nick, now it appears that Trump has a crowded calendar on his hands. Given that Trump faces 3 other trials, he could well end up spending more time and resources on legal problems than his election campaign. Do you think it will hurt his White House bid, legally or otherwise?
Well, Ramesh, really there's 2 sides to this argument. Undoubtedly, they will get in the way of campaigning. Bear in mind, he'll have 4 trials in 4 different cities, and trials that he'll have to turn up to in person. So here in Washington, D.C., also in New York City, and trials in the states of Florida and Georgia as well. That March 4th date is also problematic as it falls just a day before Super Tuesday. That's the date when the most number of states get to have their say to vote on which Republican candidate they want to be the nominee for the party. More than a dozen states likely to be voting on that day, but of course Donald Trump won't be on the campaign trail hitting all of them the day before. Instead, he'll be in a courthouse here in Washington, D.C. getting ready for this trial. So those are the things that certainly stand in the way for him. But on the flip side of all of this is the fact that all of these trials, all of these criminal charges that have been filed against him over the last 4 months, they've all actually helped him. In terms of his polling numbers, he's now head and shoulders above every other candidate who's trying to run to get the nomination of the Republican Party. And it's also helping his fundraising. There has been a significant spike in fundraising numbers every time he appears in a courtroom. And remember that mugshot from just a few days ago down in Georgia. He's now using that on mugs, on T-shirts, as a way to sell to his supporters to help with his fundraising efforts, all of which will, of course, helped propel him even further in his bid for the White House.
Indeed. And also, Nick, the cases filed against Trump in Washington, D.C. and Florida are on federal charges, conspiring to overturn the 2020 election and illegally retaining classified documents after leaving office and obstructing the government's efforts to retrieve them. Now, if either of these 2 trials are delayed until after the election, and if Trump is the winner, could he pardon himself, and what happens to the remaining 2 trials?
Well, really, there's a lot of ifs, a lot of unknowns in all of these matters. It does seem unlikely, though, that either of these trials will get delayed. We know that March 4th is a date when things are due to kick off here in Washington, D.C. May the 20th is when that trial in Florida is meant to get underway. In terms of federal charges, now, in theory, a president is able to pardon someone who is convicted of a federal charge. However, it is a legal grey area because a sitting president has never tried to self-pardon themselves. So that's something that will be fought over by legal scholars, potentially even ending up all the way in the Supreme Court if Donald Trump were to win the election and if he was convicted on those federal charges. The state charges, though, are a little bit trickier. Under the Constitution, the president does not have the power to pardon anyone, including himself, who are convicted of state charges. But like I say, many ifs, many uncertainties, many things that we'll still need to get through before any of these things gets to the Supreme Court or in front of any of those legal scholars who need to weigh them up and make a decision.
Nick, thank you. That was Nick Harper reporting from Washington, D.C. The Islamabad High Court has suspended former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan's conviction in a corruption case and has ordered his release. But it's still unclear what is next for the popular former leader.
Imran Khan has faced one crisis after another. He was arrested on corruption charges and given 3 years of imprisonment earlier this month. He was found guilty of unlawfully selling state gifts during his tenure as Prime Minister from 2018 to 2022. Pakistan's election body also barred him from contesting elections for 5 years. With the next poll due later this year, it's unclear now if he will be released, as there are other pending cases against him. The 70-year-old politician faces charges including abetment to murder, leaking state secrets, and orchestrating violent protests. Though Khan's legal team is optimistic.
We are very hopeful he would be released. So far he has not been arrested in any other case. We have not been informed that he is under arrest in any other case. If that is the case, he should be out very soon. We are all waiting for there is a procedural formality.
It is another legal win for Khan after the Balochistan High Court dismissed sedition charges against him on Monday. The former charismatic cricketer lost a parliamentary vote of confidence in April 2022 and had to step down. Since then, there has been political turmoil, and Khan's attempts to rally popular support have worsened relations with powerful military generals. Rahul Singh reports for DD India.
London expanded its ultra-low emission zone on Tuesday to all boroughs in an attempt to discourage usage of polluting vehicles from entering the city. Drivers who choose to cross the boundary with vehicles that do not meet requirements will have to pay nearly $16 every day. Stuart Smith reports from London.
The centre of the city has had an ultra-low emissions zone since 2019, but this policy means hundreds of thousands more may be susceptible to the charge. The mayor proposed the policy in order to reduce the harm of toxic air pollution, which researchers found was responsible for prematurely killing 4,000 Londoners a year. Those in opposition say it's unfair on those who require a car to move around and don't have the means to upgrade their vehicle or use public transport alternatives. It's turned into a massive political hot potato between the Conservative government and the opposition Labour Party. While the Conservatives run the country, Labour runs London, and the elected mayor Sadiq Khan says the government seems to be weaponising air pollution and climate change for political reasons. Outrage amongst some has resulted in hundreds of the new ULEZ cameras reportedly being vandalised or stolen ahead of the start date to prevent vehicle number plates being scanned and stop fines being issued. The mayor's office says it's not backing down, with some cameras getting armour plating to protect them. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
Despite the air traffic control glitch being fixed across UK's airspace, the Britons have faced many challenges who remain stranded in many European airports. The stranded British travellers in France have complained about lack of information and utter confusion as they tried to get back to the country. Britain has said that it would take days to resolve the disruption to flights into and out of the UK.
Sold from Paris early yesterday. We waited for 2.5 hours in baggage handling. They sent our bags to the wrong terminal, so we were stuck in the airport for about 7 or 8 hours yesterday. We were left high and dry and were given no options except to leave the airport.
Older generation travellers without phone apps, etc., hadn't a clue how to get out. The French helpers were of no help whatsoever, other than they said everything's booked or cancelled. So we guessed people stuck in Europe for a number of days, not able to get back.
And Julia Chapman now joins me from London. Julia, the London mayor says non-compliant cars can now get financial support to switch to greener, less polluting alternatives. But the moves proved controversial because of the steep costs involved for the motorists. So it's not gone down well with the public, has it?
No, there has indeed been quite a lot of controversy over the expansion of the ultra-low emission zone that has come into effect on Tuesday. There are many people who say that this was simply introduced too quickly. There was about a 9-month lead time on this expansion. And of course, the timing is very challenging for many who are also facing the pinch as the cost of living continues to be an issue for many, many Londoners, not least those who are living further further on the outskirts of the city where ULEZ is now reaching. So there has been a lot of controversy. Many people have opposed this. We saw a small protest outside Downing Street, the seat of the Prime Minister, earlier on Tuesday. And there have been cameras that have been vandalized to prevent authorities from detecting cars entering the ultra-low emission zone. But as you say, there is a scrappage scheme in place. Those that are eligible receive around £2,000 or $2,500 to get rid of their older, more polluting cars, those that aren't compliant with the new regulations, and help them to buy a new one. But those opponents who are protesting say that simply isn't enough money to buy a new vehicle and will still come at a big cost to those that need to scrap theirs.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Julia, drivers must pay £12.5, that is about $16 or 1,300 Indian rupees per day to drive a non-compliant vehicle anywhere in London now. The penalty for not paying is set at £180, which goes down to £90 if it's paid within 14 days. But don't the benefits far outweigh the inconvenience? For one, it'll lead to a greener, healthier London for everyone. It'll save lives, protect children's lungs, prevent asthma, dementia and other health issues, isn't it?
Well, that's certainly the argument that has been made by London Mayor Sadiq Khan, who has been the proponent of the expansion of ULEZ, although it was under his predecessor, Boris Johnson, who is a conservative, where ULEZ was first introduced. So there have been some political wranglings over this. And yes, there is a cost, of course, associated with entering the ULEZ zone. It is much higher if you don't pay that within the first few days. But the argument is that the health benefits for Londoners are so dramatic that this is an important move that has been put forward by the London mayor. He says that there are some 4,000 premature deaths in the British capital every year directly linked to pollution. And ULEZ has already existed in some form since 2019 in a much smaller area of central London. Since then, the mayor's office says there has been a 50% drop in some air pollution particulates, as well as a decrease in children being hospitalized with lung-related illnesses. So they are certainly saying that the benefits outweigh the downfalls that will be hitting many Londoners, but they also say that 9 out of 10 vehicles in London are already compliant, and this is only going to affect about a tenth of the city's population.
All right, Julia Chapman in London, thank you for now. And still to come on DD India News Hour. US Commerce Minister calls on Chinese Premier in a bid to repair trade ties. And North Korea calls for boosting its navy as Japan, South Korea and the US conduct drills off the Korean peninsula.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. Indian Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari launches the world's first 100% ethanol run vehicle. London's move to charge drivers of polluting cars sparks protests. And the US government evacuates people before Hurricane Idalia makes landfall in Florida. French President Emmanuel Macron, in a speech to diplomats, has said that France's ambassador to Niger will stay in the country despite pressure from leaders of a recent coup. Macron reiterated support for Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum and said that his decision not to officially resign despite being ousted in a coup was courageous. The United Nations has raised concerns over the impact of sanctions on the nation, which have led to the blocking of vital humanitarian aid, including food and medicine. Trucks carrying essential food and aid have been accumulating at Niger's land borders, resulting in a significant rise in food prices. Furthermore, the humanitarian efforts in Niger are facing another setback as UN aid flights remain grounded due to difficulties in obtaining jet fuel.
We'll see how the situation will evolve in 3, 4, 5 months from now if there's been no solution, if the sanctions are still on. We hope that by then there would be a regime of exception for humanitarian aid, which would certainly help and limit the effect of the sanctions. But the immediate goods is going to be food, and then it's going to be access to medicine, to drugs.
And Stuart Smith now joins me from Paris. Stuart, Niger declares a French ambassador persona non grata, but France says its ambassador will stay. Is it unprecedented in diplomatic affairs? Already Niger has cut off electricity and water to the French embassy in Niamey. So could the junta revoke the ambassador's diplomatic immunity and render him vulnerable to prosecution?
Yeah, it seems to be unprecedented. That's because the government is not the one calling the shots here in Niger. It's a group that is not recognized as the country's leaders by the French government. It would be a cut and dry situation if the official government in any country recognized by France wanted the ambassador to leave. That is the country's right, and that is what the Vienna Convention says. Any ambassador, any diplomat can be expelled at any time for any reason. But because France doesn't recognize the people in charge in reality as the official government, you have this really odd situation. There are other examples where something similar has happened. Take, for example, in 1979 during the US embassy siege in Tehran. But on that occasion, the rebel group were holding the diplomats hostage. They wanted to leave. This French ambassador doesn't want to leave. Then there's a situation like in Afghanistan when the Taliban took over, where a power that France did not agree should be in control took over, but the Taliban do not want the French ambassador to leave. So this particular set of circumstances does seem really odd. As we've seen so far, they've only gone as far the junta as cutting off certain supplies to the embassy. French analysts suggest they won't go any further than that, such as using physical force to remove the ambassador, as that could then give France legitimate reasons, very legitimate reasons, for undertaking a military intervention there to protect its diplomats.
Stuart, military cooperation between Niger and France remains suspended, but France continues to maintain a military presence in the country, ostensibly to combat Islamist terror. Now, how serious is the threat of terror groups operating in the region?
That's right, yeah, between 1,000 and 1,500 French troops still there. And while military cooperation is suspended, that doesn't mean that they're going home. A bit like with the ambassador situation, France is keeping its representatives in the country, both military and diplomatic. And it says they are not going to leave until the official government tells them to leave, which of course is in no position to do. So for now, they plan to stay. The risk is real. And in fact, this junta that has come to power cites the risk of Islamist terrorism as the reason it felt it had to do what it had to do. It says a military government would be far more effective at taking on those Islamist militants. But look to the neighbours of Niger for what happened last time coups happened there. In Burkina Faso, for example, the number of deaths from Islamist militants only went up after the coup, as the chaos within the military and within the country only allowed more room for those kind of cells to operate.
Stuart Smith in Paris, thank you. North Korea has called for strengthening its naval forces as the US, South Korea and Japan conduct joint naval drills off the Korean peninsula.
North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un said he wants to modernize the capability of his country's naval forces, as he criticized the increased presence of US strategic assets in the Korean peninsula. Kim and his daughter visited the Navy Command on Sunday to celebrate Navy Day. In a speech, he denounced the leaders of the US, Japan and South Korea as gang bosses. That, as those countries staged joint naval missile defense drills off the Korean peninsula. Last week, South Korea and the US began summer exercises designed to enhance their joint response to North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. Pyongyang has long denounced these drills as a rehearsal for war. Kim has accused the US of turning the seas near the Korean peninsula into the most unstable waters, with the danger of a nuclear war. Rahul Singh reporting for DD India.
And staying in the region, Japan has received the green light from Washington, D.C. to purchase more than $100 million worth of air-to-surface missiles. Tokyo had requested to buy up to 50 of the weapons following the procurement of more than 500 Tomahawk missiles in a similar arrangement with the U.S. Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
Well, Washington has approved the request from Tokyo for a $104 million deal to supply missiles that can be mounted to the Japan Self-Defense Force F-15 fighter jets. The US says that this is an important step to help what they call a major ally, secure their political and economic position in the Indo-Pacific. And securing that economic position is becoming a very profitable trade for the US, because before this $104 million deal, there was a $1.6 billion sale of Tomahawk missiles from the US to Japan, plus extra for the hardware to mount that to Japanese naval vessels. This all follows a decision from Tokyo to double its defense budget over the coming years. The first step has been done in that already to respond to security challenges, perceived security challenges that are rising in the Indo-Pacific region. It's also endowed itself with extra, abilities in its new national security strategy, counter-strike abilities to attack enemy bases should the need arise. Japan, of course, is constitutionally a pacifist country. However, successive administrations with the US support have found workarounds to endow the self-defense forces in moves like this purchase to really improve, or as they say, enhance Japan's security in the Indo-Pacific. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo, reporting for DD India.
U.S. Commerce Minister Gina Raimondo's had a busy day of talks in Beijing. She's trying to improve relations over trade between the U.S. and China. Here's Andrew Wood in Hong Kong to update us on what's happened so far.
Well, I should imagine that Washington and Beijing are still pretty much at loggerheads over trade in the highest technology, the fastest computer chips that America no longer allows its companies to sell to China for use in things like artificial intelligence and so on. But I do think that both sides have been doing their best to try to appear, friendly in this visit by Gina Raimondo. She pointed out that actually most American trade with China has nothing to do with restrictions. It's mostly relatively ordinary stuff. For their part, the Chinese premier said that the world would be a better place if America and China could have better social and economic links. One development from this, not a very big one admittedly, but nobody was expecting a breakthrough in relations, is that there'll be a summit next year between tourist leaders of America and China. Now, of course, Ms. Raimondo is not the only big name from America to have visited China recently to improve relations. We've had the Secretary of State, we've had the Treasury Secretary, and also President Biden's climate envoy, John Kerry. And it's the British turn on Wednesday to send somebody. That's the British Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly. Lots to talk about. As he's the first British Foreign Secretary to visit China for 5 years. He was due to visit in July, but that visit was postponed rather hastily, because you may remember that Qin Gang, the Chinese foreign minister, suddenly lost his job. He hadn't been seen in public for a month, and then he suddenly lost his job. His name was wiped off Chinese government internet sites and so on. We still don't know exactly what's happened to him, but he's since been replaced. So perhaps that will be something that James Cleverly could ask his counterpart in Beijing on Wednesday and tell the world what exactly happened. In Hong Kong, I'm Andrew Wood, reporting for DD India.
And now take a look at some more stories making news around the world. India's neighbor Sri Lanka is facing a severe drought. Weather forecasters have predicted that there will be no rains till October. Authorities are therefore estimating that around 75,000 acres of paddy loss, threatening the country's summer rice harvest. After a consistent decline in the working-age population and national birth rate, authorities in eastern China have decided to award newlywed couples 1,000 yuan in cash if the bride is 25 years or younger. China has already adopted a series of subsidies for childcare, fertility and education for couples who have children. Ethiopian artists, journalists and folk dancers are upset and putting pressure on the government to roll back its plan to tear down Fendika, a center of art, music and poetry. Renowned dancer and choreographer Melaku Bele, who joined the Fendika Club 10 years back, along with lovers of Ethiopian dance and music, is shocked with the decision and wants the place to be spared. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Hurricane Idalia to make landfall on Wednesday in Florida. And India launches new initiatives to mark the National Sports Day. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. Authorities in the U.S. state of Florida ordered evacuation as Hurricane Idalia barrels towards the coast. Millions of residents brace for tough times ahead as the major tempest is likely to make the landfall on Wednesday. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said that the storm could be extremely devastating.
The National Hurricane Center advisory includes that if this storm hits at high tide, storm surge could reach 8 to 12 feet in some areas. And so that would be life-threatening storm surge. I know all those areas are under evacuation notices in the low-lying and coastal areas. You run from the water and you hide from the wind. If you're there in that storm surge, you're putting your life in jeopardy when it gets to be that high.
Besides Florida, regions in different parts of the world are witnessing some harsh weather conditions. Flash floods caused widespread destruction in Italy, while Austria too is facing heavy rains. However, wildfires ravaged parts of Greece.
'From the Americas to Europe and Asia,
the world continues to witness harsh weather conditions. In northern Italy, landslides and flash floods are causing widespread destruction. Roads overlooking the picturesque Lake Como have been washed away. Torrential rain also triggered a landslide in Blevio and flash floods in Genoa and Sondrio. Cleanup operations are underway in affected cities. Austria too is facing heavy rains and storms. Rivers have reached critical levels and have caused floods in several regions of Austria. The situation in Greece continues to be grim. Wildfires that have so far killed 20 people in the country are still raging for the 10th consecutive day, causing temperatures to increase. Wildfires have forced thousands of people to evacuate their homes. In the United States, Phoenix, Arizona is reeling from a heat wave where temperatures have surpassed 46 degrees Celsius. Arizona got some respite from the scorching heat earlier this month, but is now once again experiencing extreme heat. And rescuers have stepped up evacuation efforts in eastern and central China as heavy rains continue to trigger flash floods. China's government has called for more precautions as Typhoon Saola makes way across the South China Sea. Mihir Makuri reporting for DD India.
The governments of India and New Zealand on Tuesday signed a memorandum of understanding to boost cooperation in civil aviation. The MOU was signed in the presence of India's Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia and Damien O'Connor, Minister for Trade, Export and Agriculture of New Zealand. According to the MOU, the designated airline of New Zealand may operate any number of flights from 6 points in India, including all the major metro cities. Similarly, Indian Airlines can operate from Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch and 3 more points in New Zealand to be named by India.
We signed an MOU that has opened up the possibilities of furthering of air transport between our two countries. The open sky policy has been put in place. Points of call from India have also been increased to 6 between both countries, covering major metros, Bombay, Delhi, Bengaluru, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata.
Miss World Beauty Pageant is coming to India after more than 2 decades. India's Minister of State for External Affairs and Culture, Meenakshi Lekhi, met participants of Miss World 2023 in New Delhi. The minister asked them to put their best foot forward in the competition. DD India's Gaurav Gupta spoke to Minister Lekhi on the event being held in India. Take a listen.
To have Miss World in India makes sense. Plus, Indian girls are very good looking also. In addition to the fact that they're very bright, they're very, very intelligent. It's best to showcase to them what India is, getting more girls to be interested in art, culture, craft, science, technology, digitization. So this is one way of promoting the culture of competence, culture of harmony, a culture of peace and prosperity together.
India's lunar mission Chandrayaan-3 has confirmed the presence of sulfur on the moon. The Pragyan rover has also detected the traces of other elements near the South Pole. Search for hydrogen is still underway. The Indian Space Agency ISRO has also unveiled the presence of aluminium, calcium, iron, chromium, along with some other elements. On the occasion of National Sports Day 2023, India's Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports, Anurag Singh Thakur, launched several key digital initiatives to boost the sports ecosystem in the country on Tuesday. The minister launched an information booklet on sports infrastructure projects sanctioned under the Khelo India scheme, as well as launched a National Sports Federations portal, while also felicitating Indian athletes for their remarkable performance at the World Championships.
In a significant move aimed at promoting sports and nurturing athletic talent, Union Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur inaugurated a series of groundbreaking initiatives on National Sports Day at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in Delhi. Among the initiatives unveiled by Union Sports Minister was the highly anticipated Fit India Quiz 2023, a platform designed to engage and challenge citizens on their knowledge of health and fitness. The minister also launched the National Sports Federation portal, a centralized hub for information and resources to support sports association across the country.
फिट इंडिया जिसकी चर्चा यहाँ पर की गई, इसमें थोड़े बहुत नहीं, इसमें 3.5 करोड़ रुपया कैश प्राइज देश भर के युवा स्टूडेंट्स को दिया जाता है जो इसमें भाग लेते हैं। और मुझे कहते हुए प्रसन्नता है, अब जब मैं बॉम्बे में इनसे मिलकर आया था तब वहाँ पर जितने विद्यार्थी आए थे उनमें से कुछ स्टूडेंट्स अरुणाचल प्रदेश की टेंगा वैली से आए थे, ऐसे अंडमान निकोबार के हों, हमारे लक्षद्वीप के हों, छोटे छोटे राज्यों से, मेघालय, सिक्किम, पूर्वांचल के राज्यों से हमारे विद्यार्थियों ने शानदार प्रदर्शन करके देश में वो आकर टॉप टीम्स में उनका नाम आया है।
A highlight of the event was the release of a comprehensive booklet outlining the sports infrastructure projects sanctioned under the esteemed Khelo India scheme. This initiative aims to revamp and upgrade sporting facilities, providing athletes with world-class training environments. To facilitate the process further, an online portal was introduced allowing seamless submission of proposals for financial support toward the creation and enhancement of sports infrastructure projects under the Khelo India scheme. During the event, Minister Thakur paid tribute to the legendary Major Dhyan Chand, an iconic figure in Indian hockey history.
सच्चे राष्ट्रभक्त भी थे, देश के लिए खेलना चाहते थे और हर बार ओलंपिक्स में तिरंगे की आन बान शान को बरकरार रखने का काम मेजर ध्यानचंद की टीम ने किया है। देश भर में राष्ट्रीय खेल उत्सव ही नहीं मनाते, हम उस महान खिलाड़ी, जैसे मैंने कहा मेजर ध्यानचंद जी हो, वर्तमान के खिलाड़ी हो, पूर्व के खिलाड़ी हो, उन सबको ही सम्मानित और याद करने का प्रयास करते हैं।
The National Sports Day event, hosted at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, captured the essence of India's aspirations for sporting excellence. With these groundbreaking initiatives, India takes a significant step forward in nurturing its sporting talent, encouraging participation, and embracing a healthier way of life. Narayan Singh's report, DD India.
And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.